Hi, all. Welcome to another episode of Saturday Architecture. We have Deepak from Microsoft with us. And a real challenge that we face is about why is it so hard to get a new project or sell a new product? It comes down to the customer who actually pays for a product or a service that is developed. They do not see value for it. It's just obvious. If they see value for it, they're going to pay. So, any business struggling to, any tech company trying to make money actually means that they are not able to deliver value to the customer. Now, if you have to deliver value, somebody has to create a value for the customer and somebody has to deliver it to the customer. So, we'll get a little deeper into doing this.
So I think like beauty, the value is in the eyes of the beholder or who are the person who actually it's just that was just a statement. But what we mean by the beholder here is the person who is actually targeted for that technology. It's the person who is paying for it, is the person who is going to enjoy that product which you have created. So this that is something which is just creating that product. And we have great examples of great products created, but people just didn't find value in using them. We had at one point of time Microsoft had created a competitor to the iPod. We had the Zune, and it didn't succeed because people did not find value in that whole ecosystem. In terms of technology, it was a great product. People liked the whole concept. The interface was great, the engineering was great, but just people didn't find value in using that product. The similar thing happens with the other technology solutions as well. You create new software, you create new technology. We were discussing before we started recording the GitHub code spaces, and we were trying to find out it's an amazing solution, and why would somebody want to do it? Now the person who designed it, my point of argument was, when engineers create these products or they come up with these innovations, they they think about a problem which they're solving almost for themselves. So they'll be most excited about solving a problem which they are having, or which somebody explains to them and they just resonates with them and says, yeah, this is a great problem to solve, and I will go ahead and solve this problem. And that's the value they are thinking about. But does that mean that will work in the larger context? That is something engineers are not trained to think about. They are not trained to think about whether this value is for me, or is it for what other people will find value for it. But they are excited to solve that problem just for themselves, or somebody who asked them to solve the problem just for that person.
So when somebody writes a solution, right, which took 2 minutes to execute, then I made it execute in 5 seconds. It's given me the value that I was able to crack the problem of performance and I did faster. So it makes me feel good. So for me, yes, it is valuable. That
Yeah.
that speed increase is of value. That leads to the question, right? Now, who should that value be actually created for in the real world? In the real world, it is not about how fast a process runs or how much time the machine takes to come up or what is it. So in the real world, we have problems of transport, health, food, convenience to human beings like that. So in that case, what is value and how is that value? Who takes the responsibility for creating a opportunity for a value? Okay, and just because an opportunity is created doesn't necessarily mean that it will be realized. It is like I cooked a great dish. It is a opportunity to satisfy somebody, but unless somebody eats it, the value has not been really realized. You have created value, but it's not yet realized. So unless somebody realizes the value, the cashier is not going to get the money. So who does these two jobs? What's the
So,
difference?
so the engineer is the person who is creating that value. So the person creating the code or creating the dish, in this case the chef, working on creation of or innovating on that on that on the dish, is the person who is creating an opportunity for a value. But the realization of the value has to be done to proper architecture or somebody who thinks like an architect. So there is value to be created, the somebody who thinks like an architect, who looks at the problem from the end user's perspective, or the person who is going to enjoy the value from that perspective, and creates a framework for that value to be realized. Now, architect on their own cannot create value just just by creating a framework. So that they need assistance, rather the execution assistance of lots of other components.
They need to collaborate with other
Yes,
teams.
yes, yes. So just realizing the what the customer wants and be putting into a framework is not enough for the value to be actually realized. So what architects can do is create the framework for value to be realized. How the value is realized is by executing that framework through other people, with the collaboration with other people who will go and talk about that problem to people, and who will talk about the adoption. And there are skills which are required to achieve those things, and those skills are really required to be involved. And that is part of the framework for the architect to be able to build that framework and build an execution framework. It is not just to build a theoretical framework of value realization, but also to be able to list out the capabilities which are required to execute that realization. That is what the real work of the architect is in terms of getting the value realized.
So creating value has a set of skills. Realizing value has a set of skills. They are technical, process, all combined together. What it is, they are two different skill sets and two different mindsets. Does it have to be done by two different people, or the same person can do it?
So it's not necessary that the somebody with a great technical mind may not be able to be think like an architect. It is not necessary. But in practice, what we have found is that great engineers don't always make great architects. That's the observation. It may not be universally true. There may be great engineers who are able to relate to the end users and find value, but that's what we are saying, that they are thinking like architects. So that's a skill which they have acquired by doing the problem solving and realizing what they are creating technically, how it is going to be actually enjoyed by the end users, or how it is going to be valuable to the end user. So the so it's not necessary that great engineers cannot be great architects. But in practice, what we have found is people who are focused on technology, they tend not to think about the wider value realization framework. So that's the reality of it. Because
And also, is that also possibly because that realization value part that has its own amount of hard work of learning new things, implementing? It's just humanly difficult for somebody to specialize in both value creation and value realization. It's just that
yes,
there's only so much you can do in a day, and
correct, correct.
that's is that one of the possible reasons. And the physics of time
Yes,
constrains you to pick one and specialize as one. You can't specialize in both.
both, correct, correct. So, but yeah, so what I meant was that thinking like an architect is something which will help the engineers also. So but that does it is not a necessary condition for them to be able to be great at their jobs. They need to just make sure that they are able to create that opportunity at the right time and with the right number of resources. Because the architect skill set is really specialized, to make sure you get the value out of the opportunity which is being created.
Great discussion. Thanks, Deepak, for sharing the insights. We will look forward to what the listeners and the audience has their thoughts and comments on this. We will come back more with more on what is the path forward for making value happen.